Hey everyone, Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's had a good weekend up to this point. Hopefully everyone continues to have a good weekend here. So I remember making the November outlook recently. So I said in that video towards the end that I was going to be making a video about the winter outlook. Thus here we are. So sure you smash that like button, decimate that subscribe button, and obliterate that share button because some interesting stuff that I've taken note of here since I've looked into the outlook here. So one thing to note is that this is looking at a 3-month average here. So no, not every day is going to look like this. There's going to be a lot of little flip-flops within the pattern, so to speak, where we're going to be jumping in between periods of warm air and cool air depending on your region here. This has got the standard look of an El Nino wintertime pattern, so don't be surprised if you see a few points where, especially if you're in this area within the reddish orange area, of having a bout or two of above average temperatures. Same could be said here over towards the southeast, especially with the southeast ridge coming into play. And then over here towards the heart of the country, on the southern plains in particular, we could be seeing near normal temperatures over here as well. Alaska itself for the wintertime looks like we're mostly going to be above average here. Just about the entire state, actually, I would say so. But don't think that there won't be any cold blast here as well for anyone that might be watching from Alaska. But the main areas of interest that I would be looking at for the above average temperatures, obviously northwest and the northeast in particular. Because of the typical El Nino pattern, we usually will end up seeing a ridge begin to develop with the polar jet, which is a little bit stationed more to the north here. It's going to be pretty much above the border, so we could see even above average temperatures towards Canada at this point. But there's going to be a secondary jet stream that pops up back into play here, and that's going to be the subtropical jet. This is going to create a slightly cool, possibly even cooler than average area over towards some of the southern states, towards maybe parts of the southwest, southeast as well. It really depends on some other variables such as the NAO and the AO, and then also the southeast ridge. If any of these factors come into play, it could definitely change some of the influence here as far as our setup is concerned here. I'm going to go into greater detail in that in the follow-up video that I'm making towards the end of the month, so make sure you're looking forward to that. So that being said, we've seen the temperature outlook at this point. We don't have any areas that are below average right now over the 3-month period. But what really catches my eye the most is the precipitation outlook. For the seasonal precipitation outlook, this is also pretty typical of a wintertime El Nino setup. We see the northern states being a little bit drier than average. Some areas over towards the Great Lakes in particular might concern me more. Maybe it might slow down the lake effect snow machine. But I do think we will still get some decent bouts out of that as well. Then over towards Montana, North Dakota, and parts of Idaho here, we could also see a few areas where we would see a little less precipitation than what we're expecting here. Doesn't mean that every month is going to be dry, but as far as the season is concerned, we could see a little bit of a departure here. We'll kind of get into the potential values here. Keep in mind, we're looking pretty far out in advance here, so it's going to be tough to really gauge just how much of a departure we may or may not have. But the main thing to make note of here also is, of course, the southeast. Like I said, with that subtropical jet coming into play and the storm track being a little bit more to the south here, any sort of troughs that can develop from that area will often yield to increasing amounts of activity with the weather here. Cool downs are possible, multiple storm systems are possible, maybe even a few winter storms. Can't rule it out, but anywhere along the northern end of this boundary here, I'd say there's a good chance of maybe seeing additional snowfall or increased amounts of snowfall. Unfortunately, I don't have a particular map that would indicate above average or below average chances of snow right now, but I would definitely say somewhere around, I would say maybe the middle part of the Ohio Valley, maybe even into the Tennessee Valley, we could see snow here. Towards the Rockies, of course, I'm thinking that's going to be another point of interest as well. It's going to be a poorly drawn circle. And then maybe the Sierra Nevadas could also get slammed once again this year. But we'll have to see what the temperatures bring and other consistent variables such as PDO, the NAO, the AO, and much more. So a lot still going into this here, so have to take that with a grain of salt. This is just really kind of, I'm really just trying to go off of the little bit of info that I have here, because looking 3 months out in advance is pretty difficult. But that being said here, let's take a look at what the actual jet stream typically would look like for an El Nino pattern. And this is just kind of like, this is kind of what we were seeing with the outlook here from the CPC. We had the polar jet stream north of the border here, and usually with this, we sometimes can see a bit of a ridging pattern. We still can get some pretty big cold blasts coming in from the Arctic, or even the occasional Alberta Clipper, as it's also called. These can also bring snowfall in its own right, as well as just a nice little blast of cold air to let you know that you're still in the month here, but in the winter months here, so to speak. But as far as the south is concerned, this area right here, this red jet stream, this is the Pacific jet stream or subtropical jet. This is gonna allot for cooler conditions to come in as well. And this is where things get interesting, because along this area right here, if we end up seeing moisture getting caught in between these little areas where we have the cool air come in alongside the alongside any sort of remnant moisture left over from a certain storm system, we could potentially see some winter storms out of this a little further to the south. Still questionable at this time, and like I said before, other factors come into play, mainly other oscillations, blocking highs, the whole nine. I'm gonna get into that in other videos on the Weather Nerd 101 playlist, so make sure to keep an eye on that. Those videos will be out in time. So we'll wrap this up in just a little bit here by looking at a couple other things here. This is going to be the monthly outlooks here. This is kind of giving us a slight indicator of what we could see month by month. This is not how every day is going to look, but this is over the average based on previous years. So this is what December is looking like. The warmest temperatures right now seem like they're going to be more so towards the heart of the country right now. You can see maybe temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above average in Fahrenheit. Usually that's a good indicator based off of 2 degrees Celsius here, which is what's indicated on the map. But one thing to make note of here is that, interestingly enough, this little blob of cold air probably is set to end up being on here based off of the end of November here. So something to still keep an eye on over here. And of course, like I said, this month can easily change here too, because we're looking already 2 months out in advance. So that being said, you have to take this with a grain of salt. January in particular looks like it could be interesting in my eyes as well, because we really shift into what leans into a bit more of a negative PNA setup, where it's a little bit cooler out towards the west, warmer out towards the east, significantly warm, especially over the Ohio Valley. And with this, if we were to get ingredients to come together, I think the chance of severe weather could even go up with this. So I'm going to be watching January with increased interest here in particular. Still could see winter storms as well, but like I said, other factors come into play for that, just like they do with severe weather, just as they would with winter storms. It can get kind of complicated with setups like this, but we'll have to see what happens here. This could easily change within the next 10 to 12 days by the time the next outlook would usually come out by. So we'll have to watch that very closely. Then when we get to February, we kind of get out of that pattern a little bit, and for the most part I'm thinking we might switch all the way back to a positive PNA pattern, where it could be a little bit cooler out to the east and warmer back to the west again. Like I said before, a lot of questions still. Looking this far out, my confidence isn't too high in this, so we'll just have to keep an eye out and go from that point. As far as moisture is concerned, go over the monthly totals with that. This is looking, we're going to go backwards this time since we're already on February. Very active towards the south here and towards the west. Really, it's the Great Lakes and some of the Ohio Valley region here that might be a little bit drier than average. Go back towards January, that's when I'm thinking, and this is kind of would also verify some of my concern with severe weather. The fact that we do have a lot of moisture and looking like it's going to be a play. A lot of storm systems could be over towards the southeast. Dixie Alley I'm particularly concerned with as well. Then out west, we could potentially see indicators of an atmospheric river. Kind of hard to say right now, so I'm not going to read into that too much. And then also, let's not forget last year was really rough for these guys over here, so let's not speak that into existence if we can help it. Then for December also, southeast looks pretty active at this point as well. I'm definitely thinking towards December we could see a winter storm possibly over towards the Ozarks, maybe towards Ohio, Indiana, Illinois as well. Of course, still, like I said, there's other parameters that may come into play here to either enhance that chance or inhibit it. But also, just like we were seeing with the outlook here, this look right here is pretty congruent as well, where we're seeing the drier than average look for the northern states here. So a lot of questions still to be had, but it looks more and more like we're going to have a pretty active pattern take shape over the south here. Towards the north, we're looking like we're going to be a little bit more quiet to start out winter. So one last thing that we can look at here to kind of give us one more indicator, so to speak, is by looking at the height anomaly. This will kind of give us a potential idea of what we could see for air masses here. Keep in mind, like I said, we're looking very far out in advance. December looks rather zonal, so to speak, at least at the mid levels of the atmosphere. But as we continue to move forward here, move into January in particular, here's an indicator of that negative PNA setup. We have that warm air in place more so towards the eastern half of the U.S. and that cooler out west. And then by the time we get to February, we kind of flip it just a little bit here. We're looking a little bit more neutral, but it also looks like the pattern itself could be a bit more active. We could probably see this cold air push its way all the way out to the east here, and then eventually that's when the pattern flip might take shape. We could maybe look at March to get a better indicator of that, and that pretty much will verify it for you. But like I said, still a lot of uncertainty given the fact that we're looking 4 to 5 months out in advance. So we'll just have to keep looking and wait and see what happens with this setup. But a lot of indicators are leading me to think right now that winter could be pretty active. This will, of course, need revisement. So let's make sure that we're keeping an eye out on the channel. Make sure you have that bell on. But that's all I got for you guys in this video. I hope you enjoyed it, found it useful. If you did, you know what to do. Said it before, say it again. Smash that like button, decimate that subscribe button, obliterate that share button. Appreciate you guys for being here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, it's been Tyler, Metalhead Weatherman. You guys take care and have a nice weekend.